One of college basketball's biggest early season surprises has been the performance of the Portland Pilots, specifically during the Phil Knight Invitational. Joining me today to talk about UP's win over Villanova and what it's like to coach against Tom Izzo is Pilots coach Shantay Legans.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up? Welcome to the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Andy Patton. Thrilled to be joined today by Shantay Legans, the coach of one of college basketball's most impressive teams over Feast Week, the Portland Pilots. Portland hung very close with then number one North Carolina in the Phil Knight opener, defeated Villanova, came within 1 point of knocking off Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans. Coach, I would just love to hear your thoughts before we get into anything else on how your team performed during the Phil Knight Invitational.
I thought we were solid. I thought we played. I thought we were playing a good level of basketball. It's like I told my guys, you sometimes play a good game and lose, and
yeah,
I thought we did that. Especially against North Carolina, I thought we played a good game. Didn't need to play great to win, but I thought we needed to play good, and we did. And a couple plays, a couple whistles here and there, changed the tide of the game. And so, for us or against us. And so that was tough. And then being able to bounce back and play a good game against Villanova. And then after those two games, being able to come back and get a nice lead against Michigan State, play well enough to win the game. We drop a play to get the last second shot. We get a great shot, and we just come up a little bit short on the shot we wanted from one of our best players. And so when you're able to do that and perform and execute, you like your ways moving forward. Now, I would love us to win those games. Disappointed that our record wasn't where it needed to be, but it's teaching moments for us. We're playing against teams of that caliber in our league, so we got to get prepared for games like that. And I don't know if a lot of teams will have games like that, like we did. And so we got to stay fit and be ready for it. But I thought, all in all, the execution of our team this weekend was pretty good.
Well, you touched on kind of what I wanted to talk about next, which is something that basically every coach that I heard in post-game press conferences at Phil Knight always talked about the same things. Mark Few talked about it. Izzo talked about it. Sean Miller, Xavier talked about it. Playing this many games in a back-to-back succession is, it's the closest you can get to emulating what actually happens in the NCAA tournament. And I know, specifically speaking for Gonzaga, they love playing in these kind of tournaments because it's the best opportunity to get multiple really high-end opponents on back-to-back days. And I wonder for your squad, what it was like to be able to come into this tournament and know, like, hey, we're going to play some really good teams and we're going to play them in quick succession. You don't know what teams you're going to play. You guys obviously got an incredible draw to get to play three really premier programs in this event. How do you prepare your team for this kind of event, these kind of games, and this kind of moment?
Well, you just let them know you have a great opportunity. You have a chance to go play against the best teams in the country. Sometimes, you get to play these teams on the West Coast, and, it's great. You get to play against the Oregons. You get to play against, say the Gonzagas and different things like that. But having an opportunity to play North Carolina, Michigan State and Villanova, those kind of schools, those are blue bloods. Those are schools that you watch on TV a lot. And so those are the opportunities you get. And so when you have opportunity, you gotta play and fight for them. And so, I think we had a good showing, but it's something that it gets you ready for the tournament, gets you ready for postseason play. You could always come back to this when we're in March and we're getting ready to play, whoever we play in our conference tournament and trying to get to the NCAA. That's how it's going to be. And so when you have an opportunity like this, it's a lot of fun for the team. They get to play against the best players, and I want that for them. And we're always up for it. I'd always be, I'd love to do it every year if we could.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things too that you talk about, like the North Carolina game, that Moses Wood had apparently a tiny bit of his foot out of bounds. It sucked the air out of the end of that game. It was, a tough way for that game to end when it had been. I think it was a 6-point game or a 7-point game, and ultimately felt like it was even closer than that for most of the contest. to bounce back and go beat a Villanova team. Yeah, they have some injuries, etc., but to go win that game after, like, how do you get your guys to kind of focus from what was, I'm assuming, a pretty devastating loss, or a tough loss to swallow, to come around and turn around and beat a team like Villanova? How do you kind of get those guys ready to come into that game? Because your team shot the absolute lights out in that game against Villanova. How are they prepared for a game like that?
Well, it was our next, every game I talked to him about, it's the most important game of the season, because it is. You only get 31 of them, right?
Right.
Sure. You're guaranteed 31, and
Mm-hmm.
you never know what can happen. And even with some games being canceled this year, it's you got to take every game and cherish every game and give it your best. And so, our point guard Mike, he actually, he wasn't playing. He's been out for the last couple of games, so he had a great talk with the team, and got them motivated, got them ready to go. And so, not having your starting point guard is going into games like that's tough. And so, but he did a great job of leading from the side, and the guys all focused up and got ready to go. I mean, at the end of the day, when that ball goes up in the air, it's all the players, everything goes out the door. Do they believe the preparation that we put in? Do they believe the work that they put in all summer and fall was really worth something? And it shows, because they came out there and did well. I mean, we shot, I think, 42% from three in the tournament. We assisted on 72% of our baskets. And so, some of those things are great. We didn't rebound like we wanted to, but we can bounce back and figure that part out. Some of our defensive coverages slipped a little bit in big moments. So, in certain situations, you get these guys prepared, and then you just hope that, they believe in everything they've done and we've done to get to the point. And so I think we've done a good job with them. We just needed to come up just a couple more plays, and I think we would have won some games.
Well, it's funny you mentioned when the ball goes up, it's all about the players. And I was basically going to say that, but one of the other questions that I really did want to ask you, just for you individually getting the opportunity to coach against, in particular, Tom Izzo, future Hall of Fame coach, one of the all-time greats. Also, Hubert Davis, Kyle Neptune, maybe not as iconic as Roy Williams and Jay Wright, but still very incredibly successful coaches. Just for you, what is it like to get a chance to kind of be right on the sidelines next to those guys, coaching against them, kind of seeing the adjustments that they make? Is it just like a different experience getting to go against like those kind of caliber of coach?
Every game is, you try to, try to outwit, there's only like a certain handful of things throughout a game that, you can really dictate and do different things.
Sure.
And what you're going to do foul wise, or, who we're going to go after, those types of things. Those are some of the things you get to see. And so, like, I grew up on Tom Izzo. I watched his teams play. My mom was a big fan of his growing up, so we were able to, I was able to watch him and focus in on what they like to do and different things. They're a very tough team, and you learn some stuff from each team you play against. We took a couple plays away from Michigan State. From North Carolina that I really liked for Moses, and I liked for our big guys. And so, you watch coaches, sometimes you study different coaches and what they do and how they got to different places. But Tom Izzo's a guy who's won a national championship. He's coached first-round draft picks. He's coached Hall of Famers. He's coached, everything. He's done it all. And so to be able to coach against him and say, hey, we came all the way down to the very, very end. And here, try to pull one out against him was pretty good. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame guy. He's going to go, down as one of the best coaches ever to coach basketball. So having an opportunity to coach against those guys and his team was awesome.
Coach, well, the WCC is no longer just Gonzaga and the rest, and Legans tells us why he thinks Santa Clara absolutely should have been an NCAA tournament team last year and what goes into preparing for league games against Gonzaga and St. Mary's. But before we get there, let's talk about Omaha Steaks. The holidays are here. Achieve gifting greatness when you give the gift of perfectly aged, tender, and delicious Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks is an American original butcher since 1917 and a holiday gift that's guaranteed to be loved. My grandma, or my wife's grandma, I should say, started giving us Omaha Steaks a couple of years ago. I was not super enthusiastic about it, but it has been a wonderful treat every single year. Stocks the fridge for months at a time. Go to omahasteaks.com now and use code LOCKEDON at checkout, and you will get $30 off your order. Send an assortment of mouth-watering favorites guaranteed to impress, like the legendary Butcher's Cut Filet Mignon, air-chilled boneless chicken, ultra-juicy burgers, and even easy-to-prepare comfort meals that are ready in a flash. Omaha Steaks is ready to ship your order right away, so shop early and beat the shipping rush. Omaha Steaks is a gift from the heart, a gift that will be remembered with every unforgettable bite. Order with complete confidence today, knowing you're ordering the very best. Visit omahasteaks.com, use promo code locked on at checkout to get that extra $30 off your order. Minimum order may be required. Coach, when you took over before last season, you basically had an entirely new roster. You were bringing over some guys that you had coached at Eastern Washington. You added some transfers, Moses being among those guys. And then coming into this season, completely different summer, completely different situation for your team. You basically returned not quite everybody, but a huge chunk of guys, added some new contributors as well. What was it like in terms of just the summer getting to prepare, knowing that, hey, these guys have mostly played with each other. It's not this situation of, hey, I'm just trying to put together a roster and get enough guys in. Like how different was the preparation coming into this season as opposed to last season? And how much do you think that's helped your team early on this year?
Well, I think we do a very good job here of developing players and getting them better. And so what we did this summer was we actually had time with them, spring and summer and even fall to work with these guys, to work on different things, to figure out what works for them, what works for us, how it'll work for them, but also, work on their confidence, getting them in the gym. If you're in the gym, you're going to be a good player. And so, I think that had a lot to do with it. And then them being able to see how, we like to do things in the summer and be able to work on your game and get better. Big V, our big center, didn't go home all summer. He got bigger and stronger. A lot of guys stayed around and worked out and did everything they possibly could. So they got to see the work ethic that we like to put in. And that's how you start building a culture and a program. Last year, we didn't have a summer with our guys.
Mm-hmm.
Our last couple guys started getting here in August, and so it puts a little hamper on things last year, but this year we were able to do some different things. Obviously, we had some injuries and some guys couldn't play this year and some guys weren't able to do the summer. But having that time with them, getting to know them, not just about basketball, but just hanging out at the house and, going paintball, going on paintball deals and, watching basketball games. But, all those types of things that you didn't get to do the year before, the bonding part of it, where it's not all made up and you have to be forced to do something that you don't want to do. It's all, organic. And so I think a lot of the time that's when the team gets close is that summertime because no one else is on campus really. It's just them and maybe one other team and other students aren't here. So they could really work on their game, concentrate on certain things, but also get to know each other and spend time with each other. I think that's a big deal for me.
Absolutely. Coach, one thing I wanted to talk to you about too, that again, you touched on a little bit earlier in the show about Mike Meadows. He's only played 4 games. We haven't seen Chris Austin yet. I think looking at the success of the really close games in Phil Knight and heading into the WCC season, how important is it going to be to get those two guys kind of acclimated back into the rotation, kind of going forward with your team? And how much of a confidence boost is it to see, even without those guys, we saw other players step up, have some successful run, depth guys who maybe wouldn't have played had those guys been healthy. How important is it to see that happen, and how exciting is it to have these guys coming back going into the season?
Well, we're very excited to have Mike. I don't know if Chris will be coming back this year. He might have to redshirt just because we want him to come back at 100%. But Mike should be back in the game. Maybe next game he'll be playing. So being able to do certain things and being able to play the way we can play, it's always the next man up for me. You have to be ready to go. Like we have 11 guys, I believe, that can get in the game and contribute. Last night, Wyatt Lowell, who didn't play the prior 3 games, had 20 points, and so when you're able to get contributions from different players when they need to step up, that's the kind of team you want to have. But it's also a fine line because you got guys who want to play and sometimes they're not getting the minutes they want, and you got to make sure they're buying into what you're selling because sometimes players want to play. At the end of the day, they can have this, that, or the other, but they're looking around. Mike's not playing. I got an opportunity. I'm going to go play my tail off, and it is what it is. Now it gives us some added depth, and that's something you want as a coach. You want to be able to say, you know what? If you're not playing up to the standard that you're supposed to be playing at, we could always, get somebody else in here and to work hard and get you ready or get you, back centered and get you going. So having multiple players in different positions really help us. And so looking over to the sideline and seeing Chris Austin won't be here, but having, Alden Applewhite step up and, Mike missing out and having Wanze Gorcito, step up and make some big shots. And, we have a kid that's, didn't get a waiver this year, who's Vukashin, who also would be getting good minutes right now at that guard spot. Looking over there, you have 3 guys that aren't playing that have an opportunity to maybe start on this team and play big minutes. And so seeing that, lets us know the future is bright, but also the future could be right now. And it is right now. And so we got to make sure we keep working on ourselves, get better. Crumbs. We say crumbs. We want to get better day by day, keep eating crumbs, man, and keep getting better. And so guys look at that, and guys know that in our program, if you're playing well, you're going to play. You want to, it's no promises here to anybody. You come here, you work hard, and you play. And that's one thing I think our team understands.
The WCC has long been dominated by Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Obviously, have both had just a tremendous amount of success over the last decade. But the last few years, we've really seen a lot of other programs step up in a significant way. Of course, BYU has been a part of that conversation. They won't be a part of the conversation going forward, at least not in the WCC. San Francisco making the NCAA tournament for the first time in 20 years. Santa Clara has put together some really promising programs. Now, of course, Portland Pilots on a very positive trajectory the last couple of years. I'm curious your thought on just the trajectory of the conference as a whole. So much of the national conversation around the WCC has been about Gonzaga's dominance and that there's not a lot of teams competing against them. We're seeing that is definitely changing, not just with St. Mary's, but with some of these other programs as well. So how are you feeling about just getting to be in this conference, seeing the caliber of opponent that has continued to kind of rise in the last couple of years?
I think it's awesome. I think you take a team like just say ourselves and you have to go and play against some of the best teams, not just in our conference, but in the country. St. Mary's and Gonzaga is right up there. And so, being able to do that and then look around and you see conferences like you see Kansas dominate the Big 12. They're winning the league every single year, stuff like that. But at the same time, you look at our conference and, it's a true basketball conference. And we have really good teams in this conference and we go out and they prove it every year. Santa Clara, I thought last year should have been in the NCAA tournament. They should have been. I mean, you look at different clubs and things like that and you see, they had some injuries, right? But they were playing without their best, probably the best big man, besides Timmy, in the league. And so once they got him back, they lost like 2 games. So, the benefit of the doubt should have went to this conference. And so we should have got 4 teams in last year. This year, you see that, you got Gonzaga up there. You see that you got St. Mary's. They're playing great basketball. You see San Francisco is going out and winning some big games, and Pepperdine goes and beats two Power 5 teams in their tournament and bring home a championship. You see San Diego with Coach Lavin winning some big games and winning games in overtime and doing different things like that. So when you're looking at our conference, we have a basketball conference. I think it's one of the best in the country. And we play a different style of basketball than a lot of other teams. So when we do play teams, you surprise them and you beat them. And I think after teams play teams in our conference, they walk away saying that's a good team, and they're very hard to beat. And so, I love playing in a conference like this because it really makes your team play great every game, and it gets you prepared for whatever happens if you go to the tournament. I think it gets you prepared for things like that. It gets you prepared for postseason play. And so, playing against these teams and playing against these coaches, there's coaches up and down this deal that Mark Few's probably going to end up being the highest winning percentage coach of all time. The only thing he's looking for is a national championship. And so people could say and try to take shots at our conference all the time, but it's funny, we're always there. We're always doing some. St. Mary's blew some teams out last year in the NCAA tournament. And so you look at that, and it's it comes down to who you play in those things, a little bit of luck, and that's how teams go and make runs.
Absolutely. Whenever I get an opportunity to remind people that Santa Clara absolutely smoked TCU last year, I like to
it's unbelievable.
It's like a 20-point victory.
It's unbelievable. We played some teams at a conference that's supposed to be big-time teams last year, and Santa Clara is better than all of them. And when you have to go through injuries, and then, of course, you're going to lose some games in our league. We have a good league. There's no there's no days off. There's no nights off. You have to play somebody every game, and the travel's kind of, you go from one place to another, and you're going to lose some games, and that's part of it. And so, are you going to punish a team like Santa Clara for losing to Gonzaga?
Yeah, right.
It doesn't make too much sense. Gonzaga beat everybody last year. And so, you had 5 losses in league. We lost to Gonzaga twice, and we lost to St. Mary's, and then we lost to San Francisco. Those are all tournament teams. And so when you look at that, it's okay, so how are you going to punish that team but bring a team in from another conference that isn't as good as that team. And that's
Right.
where, that's why it's important that you handle your business in this preseason, and you got great basketball minds in that room at the end of the year.
You mentioned the play styles in the WCC, and that's something I'm always fascinated when talking to coaches in the conference, because at least at the very top, you have two teams that have polar opposite in terms of how they play. Gonzaga really up tempo, getting out, running, scoring a lot of points type of offense. St. Mary's plays borderline exact opposite, slow pace, methodical, efficient, try to hold teams under 50. And there's many other, San Francisco, at least under Golden and still under Coach Gerlofson, are very analytics focused. Like there's a lot of different kind of strategies and styles. And then you add in coaches like Lorenzo Romar, Steve Lavin, who've been doing this for a very, very long time. What is it like to have to kind of, it feels like you're not playing a lot of teams with super similar strategies. Does it kind of impact how you have to go into each and every game as a coach?
Yeah, it really does. It makes you start to think of different ways to beat teams. And like I tell our guys, we only have to win that one game that day. So how do we do that? How do we win one game? That's everything is focused to win that game on Thursday or that game on Saturday. And so you go into each game and it's going to be a different one every time. There's not a team where you play and you go, okay, you could legit play Pepperdine and come back and play Gonzaga. Those are two different styles. You can play, you can go down and play St. Mary's and then flip around and play a high tempo game with a lot of possessions and go play, Gonzaga. Gonzaga is one of the highest teams, quickest possession teams in the country. And you flip around, just like you said. You said it best. And so, you really got to figure out and you have to stick to what you do, the best. And wherever the cards may lie, that's where I think you need to figure out. But it is hard going to each game. It's every game's different.
Well, recruiting remains one of the most difficult and critical aspects of any coach's job, but it's even more challenging now in this so-called transfer portal era. Hear how Shantay Legans built a roster via the portal and how continuity helped keep that team together into year 2. But before we do that, let's talk about Built Bar. For anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built. They're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories. 130 calories, that's it. Just sink your teeth into that first bite and it'll change your life forever. I am not kidding. There will be a time before you try these new Built flavors and the magical, wonderful time afterwards. Built now has 5 new holiday flavors to choose from: cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper, white chocolate peppermint granola, and candy cane brownie. You're probably wondering which new flavor is my favorite. An unanswerable question, to say the least. They are all unbelievable. And they're all different, so you can order a mixed box and try all 5 flavors yourself. You got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. That's LOCKEDON15 at Built.com to get 15% off your order at Built Bar. Well, so we're about a year now into what I guess we're going to call the transfer portal era. It's obviously made a huge impact on just college basketball in general. Clearly, it has been a part of Portland's story as well in the last year with transfers from Eastern, and also, of course, players like Moses Wood and other players who've transferred from different schools. We also had a conversation earlier in the show about how important continuity has been for your team this year. I'm curious your just thoughts in general. Obviously, 1,500, 1,600 players in the transfer portal have to suspect that is probably not sustainable going forward. But what did you just kind of think about how this process has gone now that you've kind of seen it develop for at least a full year in these new rules?
Well, I think, it gives the student athletes some power, and not power, but, actually, it gives them some power over, what they want to do with their career, and a lot of guys, go into it with, well, I'm going to go do this and I want to do this. And if I don't get this, the truth of the matter is, it's really hard to go to places that are good programs and play right away. It is. And so, you have to have, when you're looking at the transfer portal, kids are just jumping in sometimes just to jump in and not really giving it a full look. And so I think the transfer portal is good, for high majors, for us, for low majors. I think it gives guys opportunities to go find guys that, fit and suit them, and so it's good for coaches, it's good for players, but, at the same time, it could also have a negative effect. I think some players are still in the portal from when it first started. You know, they jump in there and they don't get what they were told they were going to get.
Yeah.
And coaches go and get players that they're enamored with. They're so excited to have. I got this 6'10" guy that can dribble, shoot, and do all this.
Yeah.
Well, he's in the portal for a reason, you know. And so now you're grabbing guys that don't fit, you know, your style, your culture. You never know what you're going to get unless you do your homework. And so it's just like everything else. And you know, it can be used to an advantage for players and coaches, but it could also, you know, be a disadvantage for players and coaches. And so, you know, for me, it's like you don't want to go get your team, you know, your full team out of the transfer portal, because that's going to be tough, because you're not going to hit on all of them, you know. And same with the players. They're not going to hit on the school they think that, you know, they're getting in there for. And there's just so many things that can happen. And so when you have some continuity and you bring a transfer in, or you bring two of them in, and you got some guys that have been there before, those players also help with that, you know, with the smoothing over, with the adjustment period, with the transition period for these guys. And so when you're able to do that, when you're able to have guys that are, you know, been in your program, know who you are, know how you act, you know, going to put you in different positions, or going to help you in certain situations. You know, when you have that continuity, like you said, that's when I think the transfer portal can help. But when you're trying to go get 6-7 guys out of that portal and build that way, that's tough. You know, some guys can do it. It'd be really hard for me to do that. I mean, you got to know yourself. And so the transfer portal is great. You got to use it for what it is. Moses Wood, we got Moses. He was averaging like 4 points at UNLV, didn't average that at Tulane. Then he came here and averaged 15. Chris Austin, we went and found. Chris Austin's a kid I recruited out of high school. He was averaging 10 points, ended up averaging 16 for me last year. And so I knew Tyler, I knew Jack Perry, I knew Mike Meadows. So those are 5 guys there. And then, you know, we took a swing at Christian, and you know, he got here and great kid, unbelievable kid, and ended up working out. Took him some time to figure things out, but he's a 6'8.5" guy that shoots 40% from three and is an unbelievable athlete. So it sometimes works out, and it worked out for us with our transfer so far. And I think, you know, having that continuity is a big deal when you go and get these young men.
How has the transfer portal kind of shifted the way that, I mean, obviously roster construction is different now, but in terms of like the priorities regarding high school recruiting and maybe junior college recruiting and even international recruiting, like those are all things that before were kind of primary ways that coaches built rosters, and transfers was, and not necessarily an afterthought, but much more rare because they were sitting out and there wasn't as many of them. And now, because it's much easier to acquire talent that has already played at the Division I level, and, or, you know, you have a better sense of who they are and, you know, what kind of player they can be. How does that shift the high school, junior college, international kind of recruiting timeline for your staff as you're looking to build rosters going forward?
Well, for us, like right now, we only have 2 seniors, you know, and if those two seniors are going to low, everyone else is juniors. And now, you know, those juniors could be they're you know, got some older juniors that can, you know, they graduate, work on their masters. And so we really put you in a bind, because you want to go out and recruit high school kids. I love high school kids. I want to recruit high school kids. I want to build through high school kids. I want to redshirt high school kids. I want them to be, but at the same time, you put all that work in, right? And say you go and get kid that, you know, you're his only scholarship, right? You know, him and his brother, you're the only scholarship. And then you bring them there and you work on them. And then, you know, they end up going to Oklahoma.
Right.
I'm just messing around. But no, I mean, you want to go and get kids that fit your system. And so, like, you know, this transfer portal is great. Again, like I said, but you still got to keep your connections, because I got a great high school kid right now named Wanze coming from Argentina. I mean, I think he's going to be really good, you know. And then Alden Applewhite, you know, he was already in college, but he didn't get the opportunity to play. He played 7 minutes in 2 games and was hurt. And so you go and get some kids that you really like, and but you want to build through younger kids, because, you know, would I want a 3-year guy in my program with the redshirt year? He's a sophomore going into his junior year that's been with us, or go get a transfer kid that averaged 6 points a game in a different program that doesn't know me, but he's a talented player, doesn't know how we do things. Do you want which would be better, you know? Right. And so you want to build your team up from high school kids and kids that you've recruited, but you also have to look at the portal. And so for us, you know, we recruit nothing but relationships. You know, there's so many kids out there, and that's why, you know, you get assistant coaches that have great networks, and, you know, I got young assistant coaches that that, know a lot of people, and I've gotten to know people as I've grown up. So you recruit relationships. It's really hard now to see a kid and be like, I like that kid a lot, and have no connection to him to go recruit him and get him.
Yeah.
Because that kid has his AAU coach, his workout guy, his barber. Everyone has somebody now that can help him get to school, and they all have an ear of an assistant coach or a head coach, because that's the job, is relationships and different deals like that. And so, it's really hard to, cold see a guy and be like, I want that guy, and go get him, unless you're one of these, top 25 programs that can walk in the door and say, come play for me, and everything you've done recruiting the kid goes right out the window, and he goes and plays for them, which you can't be upset about, but that's just the way it works. And so we really work hard on relationships, finding the right guys, character guys that I believe that can help our program grow on the court and off the court. And so when you're able to have certain guys on your team, you want talent, but you also want guys that fit with the other teammates. And so that portal can get tricky sometimes. You're in the portal, you're a high major guy, you want to go down to a program that you're going to be the man. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And now, is he a disgruntled, really talented guy on the end of your bench messing everything up? It's just really hard. And so, or you're going to have to bend over backwards to make that guy feel better, and figure out, tiptoe around the you're just not as good as these other guys. It's just hard. And so you want guys that have been around you. So I want to recruit high school kids. I want to recruit kids that, we have relationships with, and then go from there. And now, don't get me wrong, the transfer portal has been great to us. Our big guy is a starter. Now he's a guy that we didn't know. We watched him and was like, that'd be perfect if we can get him. And luckily we got him. Yeah. And so when you're able to do that, it's great. But the portal, if you after the season, I really want you to look at this. This is funny, because I did this last year. After the season, whenever there's a big time transfer guy in that portal, the same 15 schools are on him.
Yeah.
It's the same 15.
Yep.
And it's pointless to even call those teams. Call the kid.
Yeah.
But it's the same 15 schools. Oh, well, that school, that. And it's the same ones. It doesn't matter. And you see who's in the portal. You see how they're working it. You see who they're going to get, and then it becomes, who's going to get who.
Right. Final question of the show, Coach, that I wanted to ask you. The all-time NCAA record for triple-doubles is also the WCC record for triple-doubles, set by Kyle Collinsworth at BYU. Tyler Robertson, he got a shot at this record. He has come so close. He put together a triple-double against Multnomah, has come very close in multiple other games. Really, really strong start to the season for him. I'm curious if you're expecting or thinking of any more triple-doubles for him as the year goes on. With
him, man, it's just organic how he does it. He does everything. He plays the 1 through the 5 for us. And so, the way he plays and the way he does things, it really, can really help it helps our team. He has 12 points last night, and, he has a career high 12 assists, and he gets 11 rebounds. And it's just like, didn't even factor in my mind until I saw him up there with 9 rebounds.
Yeah.
And, getting ready to sub him out. And I'm like, oh, let's see if he gets one in this possession and he gets a rebound. And so it's one of those deals where he's always flirting with it, just the way he plays. He may set out to go get him. I don't know. I don't think he does, because there's some games he only has 2 points, and there's some games he shoots 18 shots, and some games he shoots 6. It's just he's an ultimate team guy. We're not going to be on our team saying, hey, this guy's going to get 15, 16 shots. It just happens. And so that's why I think our team's very good, is because we have guys like Tyler that understand that, hey, a team's going to try to take me away. That means this guy and this guy and this guy are open. And so tonight I'll have a huge hockey assist in the game, and I'm not going to be able to be the guy that makes the play for the other guy. It's going to be me hitting that guy and that guy making the play. And so we're getting there as a team, and he's the ultimate leader in that, because, he's so selfless when he's doing certain stuff.
Coach, thank you so much for taking time today to come on the show to talk about the upstart Portland team. It's been very exciting to see how they've played this year, and I'm really looking forward to see how this team does the rest of the season.
No problem, man. I like that sweater.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Got a rep for you.
That's big time, man. I appreciate it. I thank you for having me.
Of course.
I love doing these things. I like to put our team out there as much as possible.
All right, that is going to do it for us today. Thanks again to Coach Shantay Legans for joining us today. And I want to thank all of you for making Locked On College Basketball your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Enjoy a fantastic evening of college hoops, college basketball fans out there, and peace out.